38?
Yeah.
It's going faster every time I run it.
42.
42 again, alright, it peaked. There we go. Hey guys, Vass here from Aussie Playground and welcome to my review of the Arrma Raider. Now this is a two-wheel drive brushed buggy. It is from Arrma and this is the 2013 edition. Originally I believe these cars were actually released I think late 2011 or perhaps early 2012. And last year I think I've had this guy since September, early September 2013. They re-released them with a new color scheme. They also brought out some brushless versions, which I thought was fantastic. However, the brushless versions were about $160 more. And although they did also include a Lipo battery, I did find the $160 price tag to be a little bit steep compared to the brushed version, so I opted for the brushed. Plus, I just wanted to try out the brand and just see what it's about and just see you know, what Arrma had to offer. Now this does come as a complete ready-to-run RC. You get the car, obviously, the remote. They also give us a 3000 milliamp nickel metal hydrate battery pack. It does originally come with a nimh plug. I've cut that off and put my own DINS connector on there. You should get around about 10 minutes of drive time with this pack. It's actually not bad at all. They also include kind of like your standard sort of cheapy battery charger. This one still has the nimh plug on it. I've never even used it, obviously, because I have my own chargers. It'll take you a few hours to charge up your pack, but you know, if you're just starting out, at least you got a charger ready to go. They also include a manual, which I haven't even opened out of the packet, to be honest. I've had no need to. There's about 4 Allen keys in here, a cross wrench, some preload spacers, and there's also a couple of spare servo horns, which is quite good. But other than that, there's no other spare parts, there's no other bits and pieces to offer. The remote itself runs on 4AA's. I've had this guy before and it works perfectly fine. It has the on and off switch on the outside. It's got some trimmings behind a little sort of closing door here. Collapsible antenna, drop down wheel, decent feel, plenty of range. The remote, although fairly standard and common amongst a lot of ready-to-run RCs, is actually quite good. So you should be happy with that. Moving on to the car itself, I'm trying to make this as quick as possible and as painless for you guys as possible, just to give you my final verdict. We're going to start with the tyres. The tyres on this car, I'm going to say that I'm actually quite happy with them. Good all-round tyres. They work perfectly on road as well as off road. I did find a little bit hard to get some grip on the loose gravel where I normally test my RCs, but that's fairly common, so I'm not going to knock them for that. But on you know, the short grass or just some dirt, they actually performed really well, and they were quite good on road as well, which I was actually quite amazed with. Not a lot of wear on these. I've put quite a number of packs through this car, both on and off camera, and my kids have driven it as well, so it's copped a fair amount of driving time, and it's been holding up perfectly fine. Suspension wise, probably one of the very few RCs that I've owned since doing Aussie RC Playground that I've had to not touch the suspension at all. I'm actually very pleased with the entire setup out of the box. I didn't have to reposition the shocks, didn't have to add any more preload spacers or anything like that. Very pleased with the suspension. There are a couple of adjustment points on the A-arms, both front and rear, if you do want to tweak the shocks or the position of the shocks, but other than that, there's no other adjustments on the shock towers. Durability wise, I'm going to tell you that I'm very pleased with this car. Not a single plastic part has broken on it. It's tumbled, I've taken jumps with it, it's flipped on its roof, it's done a couple of cartwheels and no problem. It even hit a curb at full speed thanks to my daughter, and no plastic broke. So the only thing that I did have a little bit of trouble with is the steering servo that you can see is currently not operational. When I do power the car, steering servo comes back to life, but you can hear the gears crunching. So I believe that when she did hit the curb, she did actually do some damage to the servo. But nevertheless, once you power it up, you do get your steering back. Now, the electronics on this guy are waterproof, so you can, go out in wet conditions or even splash through the odd puddle here and there, and you should be perfectly fine. And although it is a brushed system, I'll tell you that it is a 15-turn motor on the back, which is non-rebuildable, so you can't really service this guy. Once it burns out, time for a new motor. But ESC is also LiPo compatible, which I thought was fantastic. And they use this system called jumpers, and I'll give you guys a bit of a close-up shot at this. But basically there's two little tabs, and one tab is to eliminate your reverse, so you'll only have forward and brake. And the other tab is to switch between nickel metal hydrate battery packs as well as LiPo batteries. So you need to make sure that you've got your tabs in the right position, so that, especially with your battery one, so that you don't mess up, the ESC or the batteries that you're using. It does have a little built-in slipper clutch at the back here, and there's also access thanks to a little removable little rubber kind of cover that's on the casing. Fairly common with two-wheel drive vehicles. You'll see those pretty much everywhere. Now, as you can see, this is a fairly decently detailed kind of desert buggy, and you can't actually access any of the components with any body pins or anything like that. To basically change your battery, you need to flip the car over, and the battery tray is actually underneath here. Now, one of the main reasons why I wanted to try out this brand and this buggy is because they have this I'm not going to say it's super unique, because I have seen other brands do this, but Arrma's quite famous for it, because they've got a lot of their RCs have actually got this system. So basically there's a pin that holds the actual lid in place. You pull the body pin out, and then there's this pin that you need to push down. It's a little bit hard, so you just need to push it down with a bit of force, grab it from the other side, and that slides out like so. And then you can open your battery tray, and that's how you swap out your batteries. So there's only really one body pin to remove. It's also connected through a little sort of rubber thingy to hold it in place. That way you don't lose it, which I think is a great idea from Arrma. And then you can slide your batteries in here. Now, your standard nickel metal hydrate battery pack can almost do cartwheels inside this battery tray. But this is one of the reasons why I wanted to try out this buggy and this brand, because the original release of this car had a fairly tight battery tray. And I remember Jang from Ultimate RC actually did a very good review on the original car, and he demonstrated that it was actually quite difficult to install LiPo batteries in here, because as we all know, LiPo batteries are not rounded. Well, the majority of them are not. They tend to be square, and they tend to be slightly bigger than your standard 6-cell nickel metal hydrate pack. So the battery tray needed to be a little bit oversized, and Arrma went back to the drawing board and they addressed the issue, and they did give us a slightly bigger battery tray. However, you still struggle, well, I still struggled to hide the cables for the batteries. The only space that you really have is just kind of, the servo kind of sits down here. The only space you have is in between the servo and the actual Lexan body here, and there's really not a lot of space. And some of these wires for some of the batteries that I use are not as thin as this. I mean, we're talking wires that are almost twice the thickness. Very difficult to curl up and sort of mash into, squish into this little small compartment. Batteries with bullet connectors are also quite difficult to install in here. Although not totally impossible, it is very, very difficult because some of those bullet leads are actually quite long. And then you have the actual bullet itself that goes into the battery. It always has that little bit of it that sticks out that's quite hard. So it's not really bendable. It's quite tricky. Overall battery width can be an issue as well. You do need to be mindful of it. There's quite plenty of space at the front of the tray, but towards the rear of the tray, there are two screws that kind of protrude into the actual battery space to hold the actual hinge for the lid. and that creates a problem towards the rear here where it sort of narrows down quite a bit. So you do need to be very mindful of the type of battery and size of battery that you buy for this car if you do choose to go Lipo. I would personally recommend staying away from the bullet connector type. Stick with something that has the cables coming out at the front of the battery, just like the nickel metal hydrate packs, or even coming out on the top of the battery. But anything that sort of comes out on the side is almost impossible. I do have a couple of soft packs, Turnigy ones that are quite thin. I think they're thinner than this and about the same width as well. But because the cables come out of the side of the packs, they're a soft pack. The cables come out the side. I couldn't actually fit them in here. Amazingly, I just couldn't. The cables are too thick. I couldn't bend them around. It was just, the battery ended up crooked and it was just a mess, and just difficult to do that. So that's the only precaution I give to you. It's not at all impossible. They have given us a little bit more room for your batteries. You just still need to be mindful of the type of battery that you use, or rather more specifically the cables and how they are organized. So other than that, everything is very easy to use. I did try and investigate the steering servo to get a bit of an idea of what it was like to work on the car. I didn't swap out the servo, but obviously because it's still not working. But I did try to work on the car. To remove the Lexan, it is a little bit time consuming, but not at all difficult. You just need to remove these two little headlights that are on the cage here to make life easy. Just remove them both. And then there's a screw at the front here that holds the Lexan in place. And you can sort of peel this guy off because it is kind of fed through the actual entire shock tower assembly. Everything, this whole cage assembly is kind of part of the car, so it's not really like there's not something that you specifically call the shock tower. It's all sort of intricate, and the Lexan kind of wraps around that. Once you peel it off, you'll be able to access pretty much anything you need. You can access your ESC if you need to service that, and of course you can access your steering servo. Steering servo is actually held together. It's not bolted down to the actual car itself. It's actually held together by a top plate and squeezed in place between this top plate and the actual chassis of the car. And that's pretty much how it's held in place. I don't think it's completely original, but it is uncommon. Most of the RCs I've worked on have always had the servo kind of bolted to the car in some way or another, whilst this one is just kind of held in place. It's quite unique. Now there are some other adjustments with the car if you do want to do that. There's front and rear camber adjustment, and there's also front toe adjustment. It does have this double A-arm kind of Baja, very Baja style at the front, very authentic looking. I think the entire car looks fantastic. It performs really well. It does take a little bit of time to get used to driving two-wheel drive, especially something that sits up a little bit higher. It's not your type of race-bred buggy. This chassis design with the two plates that Arrma have come up with, which is kind of HBI Savage-esque type of style, is quite nice. It works really well. Most of the weight is towards the rear of the car, so the car is a little bit heavier. I mean, especially when I compare it to my Tim Associated B4 Stealth buggy. This thing weighs quite a significant amount more, and of course it has a much higher ground clearance, which is ideal for bashing, going over some rougher terrain, taking some jumps. The car actually handles a lot of that kind of abuse really well. There's also kind of a motor protector at the back here, so even if you do land quite awkwardly on the rear, the motor is protected, your electronics are protected. The body didn't really take much of any damage other than some the odd scratch here and there from stones and pebbles kind of coming up. Overall durability, I'm very happy with the car. The way that it drives, I'm very happy with it. Price point is actually coming down. When I bought this guy, it was I think $190, and the brushless equivalent was $350. So it was I remember there was a $160 difference or thereabouts. And So now they're actually going to be re-releasing these again. It's going to have another color scheme, different wheels. They're not going to have chrome wheels. They're going to be black wheels, and they actually look really tough. They look quite good. So for the price, if these new ones are exactly the same as this, with only some minor improvements and a new color scheme, I think they're coming down to about, for the brushed versions, about 150 versus 190. So I think it's fantastic. I mean, if any of you guys out there are contemplating buying one of these, then, you know, you want to try a rear-wheel drive kind of desert style buggy, have something that's a little bit more scale looking, highly recommend it. I have absolutely no doubts there. Just of course be cautious with your battery choices, and you should be good to go. I am very much looking forward to later in the year as well. Arrma are actually bringing out 1/8 scale buggies. As of the time of this video, we are in March 2014, so it has been quite a long time since, you know, it's been 6 months since I bought this thing. But around June, July, they're bringing out a 1/8 scale buggy as well as a truggy, which I'm going to get my hands on at least one of them to try out. So I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm actually very happy with the brand, happy with the price, happy with the package. Have no major complaints about anything. Very durable, drives well. What can I say? For me, this gets a thumbs up. If I was to rate it out of 10, honestly, I'll give it an 8. I think it's a fantastic little buggy. Great entry-level little car. Of course, that is also relevant to where you are in the world, because parts availability can vary from person to person depending on where you are. I didn't have to buy any parts, so I really can't report on how hard or how easy it was to get parts, but I have seen plenty of bits and pieces floating around on eBay, and you can also get parts online from places like Tower Hobbies, for example. So it's no issue as far as I'm concerned. You know, the world is a great big shopping center for me. Just jump online and Google the part number, and away you go. You should be able to find what you need. That's pretty much it from me, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Please be sure to check out Aussie Playground on Facebook if you haven't already. There is a link in the description, and that'll keep you maybe a couple of steps ahead as to what's going on here on YouTube. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll be speaking to you guys again soon.